Welcome to Remembering Smallville,
a Smallville rewatch podcast.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Brett.
Okay, before we start this episode, this is a very Pete Ross heavy episode.
Yeah, it is.
And so I actually wanted to discuss a little bit about Pete Ross from the comics. So really quickly, I'm going to pull up a picture of what Pete Ross looks like in the comics.
Aww.
So he is a blonde-haired guy.
With the peachest of skin.
With the peachest of skin, which is interesting.
We'll post it on our social media.
So he first appeared in the comics Superboy. So this is when they did Superboy as a teenage Clark Kent doing super things. They called him Superboy before he became Superman. This is kind of like some of the earliest inspirations for what they eventually did with Smallville. But there's a couple funny things about Pete Ross in the comics. One version of Pete Ross in the comics ended up marrying Lana Lang.
Oh,
What?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they had a son who they named Jonathan.
Oh, I like that.
Adorable.
They had a daughter. No, they wouldn't have named her?
No. I didn't know for sure if that's what you were going to say, so.
100%.
Well, it begs the question. Clearly, the Pete Ross from Smallville looks nothing like the original comic rendering of him. But if you knew that, would this particular casting bother you?
No.
Oh.
No, I love Pete.
No, because he is a good actor. He does it really well, and it doesn't break anything part of the show. I hate it when they just try to cast people that don't look anything like a character just because they want them to look different.
Yes.
It's not because...
For their talent. I hate that.
Right. Like Nick Fury in the comics, in the Marvel comics, is a white dude, but they cast Samuel L. Jackson. Is anybody upset about that? No. Because it's Samuel L. Jackson. So I just thought it was an interesting little tidbit that they did something different with Pete. But I like what they do. I like how this Pete Ross does everything. I totally believe it. It was really well done. And this is a very, very heavy Pete episode.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
And we've talked about before how much we like Pete. So before we get started into the episode, has your opinion of Pete changed one way or another after this episode?
I was very hot and cold on Pete in this episode.
Yes.
Parts you're like, Pete, you suck. And then you're like, go, Pete, yes.
So I was so thrilled that Pete is the first one to really find out about Clark's secret besides his parents, right?
Yeah.
Thrilled because that's his best friend, right? I was not so thrilled about his reaction. I thought he would have been a little bit more kind about it, but then in the end he was, and I get his reaction, but all of it was just very surprising. I was excited. I liked this episode.
I was very pleased with the way they handled this. It's not how anyone would expect it to go.
Yeah,
Yes.
You might think, he'll just accept it because he loves Clark.
Yes.
Oh, best friends. Yeah, we're united on this. I really like that it had to take twists, turns, and that they made it a responsibility on him. They try this in other superhero TV shows and movies. This person finds out and it's like, you need to keep it a secret. You need to keep it a secret. But really, this is actually dangerous for you. It's not about you keeping my trust and doing it for me. This is not safe for you to know.
Yeah, that's a burden on you,
And I really liked that.
and that
take.
can be rough.
Yeah, it's very well done. Somebody save me. Save me from not having enough money. So please like and subscribe and comment so that the YouTube gods will pay me. Okay, bye. So let's dive into the episode. This is Season 2, Episode 3, Duplicity.
Clark is forced to reveal his secret when Pete finds his spaceship. Dr. Hamilton is plagued by illness, and Lana deals with Nell's plans to remarry while Lex and Lionel adjust to life together.
I kind of liked how this was a Nell-heavy episode.
Oh, you liked that?
For your sake.
When Nell first came into the episode, you should have heard Kim scream, "No!"
It was more like this. Nell.
Yeah. We'll talk about her when the time comes.
When the time comes.
We start out with Dr. Hamilton having the shakes. Does anyone remember that episode
Yes.
from Season 1?
Yes.
Jitters with, what's his face?
all
Earl.
Earl.
With
Yeah.
Earl. Very similar. Shaky hands. They're both terrible at taking their medication in appropriate places. Earl was like, I'll have my pills in the middle of the rain. Hamilton is like, I'll try to take my pills while driving on the freeway.
But not before confronting Lex about everything. He goes to Lex, and then this is the second time we get the mention of Lex Corp.
Oh, I love it.
If you missed it before, here it is.
Oh, that's perfect.
We learn that Hamilton has been acting cuckoo bananas and everyone's quitting at the lab. So Lex says, well, you're going to have to go.
You're fired.
You're
Bye-bye.
fired. Hamilton is saying, I actually have got some stuff going. You don't want me to leave. I have a lot to contribute. You're not supposed to care what work I'm doing. Just give me the money and shut up. And Lex says, no. We're done. Thanks for playing, though. Bye-bye.
And then we see a guy driving a van chewing sunflower seeds with the worst spitting accuracy.
Oh, not just that. Kim, what happens?
The window is up.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, was this an accident? And they just kept it in. Like, why would you? Why? Why?
He spits into the window.
Such
and
a
then
weird
rolls
thing
it
to
down.
keep in the episode.
Yeah.
I think the only idea is to discredit him in some way, to just be like, this guy's a gross
I think it just
goofball
shows
dude.
us like a country bumpkin
I guess. It's
with
so weird.
just a chill little life.
Yep. And then we see Hamilton driving, and he's got the glowy green glow in his car from Meteor Rocks.
Glowy, green glow.
Yep.
And essentially, Hamilton drives recklessly and it makes the country bumpkin crash.
Country pumpkin.
And it makes him crash. He flips over and over and over again and lands in a cornfield.
He must have been driving
upside down.
real fast.
Pete comes upon the scene. Hamilton leaves the scene, flees because he sucks.
He's the worst.
Pete comes upon the scene and tries to help the driver. And what does he see in the field?
Spaceship.
Do you love how
That-
Pete is in a convertible?
They're all in old classic cars.
Yeah.
Pete drives a classic old car. So does Chloe.
I love it.
There's just nothing else to do in Smallville but restore old vehicles.
He finds the spaceship.
Here's my thought. It's been a whole summer since the tornado, right?
Yes.
Chloe went away. People have repaired the town. Who the hell runs that cornfield that didn't find that?
Or the crop duster that's going over the top
Right.
and did not
Right.
see this.
Oh my gosh, you're so right.
People just avoid it.
The people who own that field, their house could have been permanently damaged, and they're no longer there.
But look at the corn all growing nice.
I know. It's a
know.
bit silly.
Yeah.
It is a bit silly.
Like if it was in the woods where
Yeah.
there are people don't regularly frequent to spray pesticides and fertilizer. But no, we'll just ignore this ship in a field all summer long.
3 months, nobody's stumbled across it.
And the next morning, Clark's playing basketball, and he's shooting real far.
With precision
Yeah,
accuracy.
how many points would we call this basket that he makes? 160?
It's 3.
That's it?
Yep, unfortunately. He does it once, and then he runs back, and then Pete drives up. He's like, you're not going to make it from there.
And Pete said, you got to come with me. I found something. And so they go out there, and the ship is just sitting in the cornfield.
And they argue about whose
Like
house
where
they're going
to
to take it
store
to,
it
because
at.
Clark is like, I need it back, finally.
Yes.
But Pete's like, no, we'll put it in my storage shed. I found it.
Because I
It's-
found it, and
Yeah.
I'm more important and special.
So when he first took him to the cornfield, he walked right past the flipped over truck. And I was like, Clark didn't even say anything, right? He's just like, come here, pass this truck. But then they talk about it and it's like, okay, it was on the news before.
Yeah, and I'm assuming in the drive over, Pete was like, yeah, so last night I saw
Yeah.
this thing, but that's not the point. That's not the point.
Well, and
gotta
you
see
find
what's in
out
the
that
field.
Pete has led the search and rescue Pete folks a little astray so that they have time to get the ship.
Right. So
before
what
they
Pete
come.
did was he helped the man out of the truck, put him in his old school convertible, took him to the hospital, and then said, oh yeah, he crashed. I don't remember. It was night. Such and such field, probably. I'm not sure. Even though he did know exactly where, lying to buy him some time to get the ship.
yeah.
Pete's a sneaky little boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's smirked.
Okay, so let's talk about how heavy this spaceship is, right? There's literally a spaceship, gotta have some type of things. We don't know what technology they use, but he and Clark are able to lift this thing somehow to get it in the back of the truck.
Well, Martha and Jonathan would have had to, too,
No.
Oh, that's true.
because they're the only ones who would have handled it before.
I love how Clark pretends to be weak. He has
Yeah.
to yeah.
Just strong as he should be.
Yeah.
So after this scene, we get back to the mansion, and Lionel is entering. He's all blind and stuff.
with his blind walking
Yeah, what do you
stick.
think about Blind Lionel?
I think it makes him even creepier.
I love it.
He's already creepy, right? And now he's like, let me manipulate everyone in my life while being blind. It's so...
He tells Lex, oh, I have been doing so much physical therapy. They wanted me to take a week off. So here I am, chilling, taking a vacay with my son.
Yeah.
And you notice there's a point when he takes off his sunglasses and he's like getting...
Weepy.
He's got some weepy. I wonder if that's part of the blindness issue.
I feel like it's... Yeah, I
you
feel like
forget
it's
to blink and maybe
side
get
effect.
teary-eyed. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume if I was blind, I would still be seeking with my eyes for information because that's what I've always done.
So you're still kind of straining your eyes.
Oh.
And I think he's also emotionally a mess, Lionel, because I think he's pissed that he is now less capable than he was. Because as someone who runs a billion businesses and has all this money and power,
Now he's weakened in some way.
and I'm sure you use your eyes to sense people's physical responses to you and body language as a businessman, and now you don't have that power.
Oh, 100%. All you're dealing with now is tone and vocabulary. That's difficult.
And I kind of lulled a little bit when Lionel's like, just let me stay. And then Lex is like, no, father, you can stay. And he like says it so formally.
It's very formal because the last thing he talked to his dad about was, you should have let me die, you suck, son.
Yeah.
So they're not in a good place.
Our next scene, for all Nicole's love and attention, there's a random dude seen kissing who on the shoulder?
Freaking Nell. And his name is Dean. It's always Dean.
Why is it always Dean?
I don't know, Gilmore Girls.
I was going to say, is that a Gilmore
Supernatural,
Girls
right?
reference? Oh.
It's all there. There's always a Dean.
Yep.
And he's like saying, oh, your business will do better if you open that area there and you put more chairs in it. And it's like, thank you, unsolicited advice. I hate unsolicited advice. It bothers me.
You should really take it sometimes, though.
I know.
Turned it around and gave you unsolicited
I know.
advice.
There are times when it's actually good. But, man, it bothers me. I really try not to do it either.
And it's hard for Lana because she's like, who is this dude?
Yeah. So she lies to her aunt
Yes.
about going to a sleepover
At
And
at
Chloe's.
Chloe
Chloe's.
comes in clutch.
Oh, yeah. She totally is like, yes. Yes, we
Keanu
did.
movie marathon.
Yeah, Keanu movie marathon.
Okay, what Keanu movies would be in your marathon?
The Lake House.
Oh, man. Daniel?
Well, Bill and Ted,
Bill and
Oh,
Ted?
yes.
Matrix?
The Matrix,
Yes.
Matrix
and
would.
John Wick.
John Wick?
So good.
Never seen it, which is why I had to say The Lake House.
That's the only one
But
you've ever
John Wick,
seen.
John Wick wouldn't really be a thing back then. But
No.
you know, for my current Keanu,
Neither would The Lake House.
Speed?
Oh yeah, Speed.
He would get in there.
I
mean,
have not seen
there's
Speed.
there's some good options here, guys.
So they didn't do homework. But they didn't do any of that.
And
Because
Chloe's
Lana
like,
was staying at
Where
the
were
town.
you? Yeah. She's like, I gotta get away from Nell's boyfriend. He's driving
And
me nuts.
as we've seen in the last 2 episodes, Chloe and Lana are really trying to be friends. And so Chloe says, well, if you ever really do need to get away from the love nest, genuinely come to
You
my
don't
house.
have to lie.
Yeah, which I
Yeah.
thought was really nice.
Yeah.
And then we get to Pete's house with the ship, and they're putting it in the tool shed.
Clark does some pretty good lying, I think.
Yeah, it's
I
one of
think
his better
some of his
lies.
better lies.
He's like-
which hurts Pete even more later, I think.
Yeah, but
Yes.
he's saying, oh, what if it's like a high-tech crop duster? You don't know. Wouldn't you be upset if Chloe was told, oh, we found a spaceship and it turned out to be this thing? She'd never let you live that down. And Pete's like, oh, you're right. Because Chloe totally would rub it in their faces if they gave her a bad source.
But Clark really wants to tell Pete in the end. He talks to his parents about it and he says, Pete has the ship. It's in his shed.
Yeah.
Can't we just tell him and then he'll know everything? We'll get the ship back. Problem solved.
And then, yeah, and John's like, don't worry, we'll get the ship
We're going to go
back."
steal the ship,
You know what
son.
Martha says, and this is what Brett was talking about earlier, but she says Pete might not be ready to take on
It's
that
so
type of
true.
responsibility.
So
Yeah.
true.
Weird. There's parents that have a better idea on how to handle this than the
More
teenager.
years of perspective.
Clark will make this mistake.
I'm sure they've thought, well, let's tell my parents. No, we better not. Let's tell my sister, my brother, who if he has aunts and uncles, we don't know, but I'm sure that those conversations they've had those and decided
So do we ever meet any of Clark's extended family?
you'll meet his grandpa.
Oh,
That I know for sure.
who's dad?
Martha's.
Ew, Brett's doing his eyebrow thing.
That's the only one I know.
I did the eyebrow thing at Brett, and then he went to do the eyebrow thing to me.
We must be missing something.
Okay, so what happens next?
Well, we have Hamilton going to the injured driver at the hospital, and he confronts him and he tries to find out, what happened? Turns out he's been talking about a spaceship. Hamilton's obsessed, and he takes like multiple of his pills and chews them. And
Yes.
I've taken pills where it specifically says do not chew, and I'm pretty sure most pills you shouldn't, because masticating makes it start to break down too soon. It needs to have the right release period. But then he is a sleazy dude. Kills this poor driver who just
Kills our
Gives him an
friendly
air
country
embolus.
bumpkin.
Crazy.
I cannot believe it. I was like, what?
That's intense.
not before finding out he told Pete Ross.
Yes.
He didn't tell Pete Ross.
Well,
Pete Ross saw.
No,
He
sorry.
name dropped.
Yeah, he names Pete Ross is what I mean.
Yeah.
He kills the bumpkin.
But he does it in a psychotic way.
I know.
Not that any way's okay, but this is really dark.
But then we get to Jonathan and Clark showing up at Pete's
To steal the
tool
ship.
shed, and it's not there.
It's not there. Already gone.
And then they drive off, and Pete assumes that they took it. He
Pete
catches them
is
in the
so,
act.
from the beginning, he's so, what's the word?
I feel like everything about Pete is big in this episode.
Yeah.
His happiness reactions are big. His mad reactions are extra big.
Yeah.
Everything just feels bigger with
Yeah.
Pete in this episode.
Yeah.
So Pete and Clark have a little chat about
Yeah, a confrontation.
what's going on, and their friendship's on the rocks now in this episode. So everybody's struggling with friendships a lot.
Pete is just gonna leave. He's super pissed. He drives off, and then Clark makes the split decision. And what does he do?
He stops his car. Pete is driving away, and Clark gets in front of it and just like holds his car there. This surprised me, you guys, so much, because during the whole first season, you're tricked into thinking that Clark is going to tell someone or that someone's going to find out, and it never happens. So when it finally happened for me, I was like, oh, he did it. He's going to tell him.
And I'm sure
I
that
was so
excitement
excited.
was short-lived when they go down to the
Yes.
cellar. and
Why did they go in the storm cellar to
Probably
have
it's a
this
safe place
conversation?
to talk. Like
The
nobody's going to
barn?
overhear you. I don't know.
I guess, but I'm like, Clark like plays basketball and starts like scarecrows on fire with his eyes. Like, it's not like he's being secretive at his home ever.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just so his parents won't see them.
True, because
Maybe.
Clark said he wouldn't tell Pete, and he is. So they go in the storm cellar to have a
And I
secret conversation.
hate how Pete is looking at Clark. It's so
I
hard.
know. And yet it's so like realistic.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
What do you think, Brett? Did you think it was like realistic of Pete, or did you think it was a little too suspicious?
No, I mean, okay, you find out your best friend's an alien. I mean, we don't know anything about aliens. And so you do get this concept of, I don't know what I know about you. Are you secretly like eating brains at night? Do you live like we do? What are you? And obviously you've kept something from me. So how much have you kept?
Yeah.
So I
feels betrayed.
understand it. I understand it, but it's still really crappy.
I feel like there would have been a better way to have done it
Yes.
if he had kind of taken the same approach that Jonathan took. And Clark still freaked out about his own secret, and he ran away to the
True.
cemetery that very first night. I mean, if the three of them, maybe if Martha, Jonathan, or even just Jonathan, Clark, and Pete had sat down and they showed him that thing
Yes.
that Clark was shown with the weird alien writing, and then Jonathan explained it from his point of view from the start as a human to a human, then you have at least that connection.
That is very true.
That might have helped. Mm-hmm. And if he was like, he's safe, Clark's not going to hurt you, Clark is good, Clark is Clark, but we have to keep the secret because of reason.
And we didn't want to tell you because we don't want to give you that.
But now you
load.
know, and well, like have that whole chat first.
Yeah.
I feel like it would have gone better.
Yes. Yes.
I had totally forgotten that Pete finds out this early on in the show. It just slipped my mind. I always mix up who finds out things in the show and when. just because like the first like several seasons kind of blend together, and the latter half of the show there's a lot less of like the secret keeping stuff and there's more superhero stuff happening, and so I just forget kind of when certain things unravel like this.
I thought if anyone was going to have a level head about it, it would have been Pete. So I felt a little let down.
His
that
reaction's
way.
not very good.
Yeah.
But it has a good payoff later, I guess.
It
Yeah.
does.
But it's
He
not
has
great.
to go work through it. But we get to Hamilton with the ship, and he's like trying to use anything he can to break in. And then with his shaky hands, he feels the octagon, which he could have just looked at it and seen the octagon.
Yeah.
It would have made more sense if it was underneath.
Yeah.
Right? But instead...
Well, the camera shot had to... But they still could have done something with the camera under the ship. It's just
fine.
It was silly to me.
Yeah.
And that's just a quick scene, and Hamilton runs to the mansion to ask Lex, "Where is it? Where is it? Where's the octagon key? I want my severance."
And he has a creepy interaction with Lionel in the hallway. Mm-hmm. Dr. Hamilton does, and I thought it was kind of creepy.
But then he talks to Lionel and says, "I've got something you need to see," air quotes. And they go to the shed where the
ship is.
And Lionel, thank goodness, can't see, but he can feel it. And he says, "Well, I don't know. This could be a fancy new architecture coffee table for all I know, bro.
Yeah.
I need some documents. I need some data."
And that is a very Lionel approach to it. Mm-hmm. Of course, he feels it and he thinks, "Oh,
intrigued.
This is real."
Yes.
Right? But he wants all of the documentation, everything, so he has control over the situation.
Well, and Lex blows things off with Hamilton, saying, "Oh, it's who knows." But he is now he has interest peaked now as well, and he shows up in a couple scenes to Clark's farm and asks him if he's seen it, which I always thought was a little odd. Because like he just asks, "Hey, do you remember that thing?" And Clark's like, "Kind of," and then he says, "Well, it's missing. Just let me know if you see it." It's just kind of weird that he would go to Clark a little bit, but it's all connected, I guess. So
somehow
because movie, right? Because TV show.
Yeah.
So I thought this scene at the high school was a really fun, awkward scene.
Oh, Pete's a dickweed right here.
Yeah, and with Chloe there too.
He tells Clark's secret to her.
Essentially, yeah.
He says
I
all
think
the
an
things.
alien would look just like Clark.
Yeah, I saw a ship. Yeah, there was an alien. Looks just like Clark. Rude.
Yeah.
Rude.
So you have to just like relish the awkward.
I mean, Chloe kind of rescues everything and gets things to kind of break up for now.
Hold on, but you got to see this girl behind Pete's locker.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
She overhears them talking about like aliens and spaceships.
Oh, yeah, because Pete's at his locker and Clark approaches him, and there's a girl right behind that overhears them talking about this.
So you can start this at 20 minutes and 6 seconds to see just right at the locker and the girl's reaction as she hears their conversation.
She's like, "Okay, you
She's
weirdos."
like, "This is the best moment of my life. I got a part on Smallville."
Again,
She's like, "What are they eating? What shrooms are they on?"
this is not the first time and won't be the last time where they talk about stuff they should not talk about in the middle of the halls with everyone around them.
And then what last episode was it that we did? The art guy where he's like, "I heard you talk behind my back." And I'm like, now you hear them?
I know. So funny. Skipping a little head after Hamilton and Lionel are with the ship and everything, we're at Clark's loft, and Lana is sneaking peeks at her house with the telescope.
Yeah.
She's doing what Clark usually does, but scoping out Dean because she's so sick of that man.
She's playing with the telescope in the loft.
Touching his telescope in the loft.
Gosh. She wishes. She essentially is saying, "If you tell me the truth, I will. But will you?" And he's like, I can't tell you the truth." And she's like, "F you," and she leaves.
And
But literally not F you.
Yeah, the opposite of it.
And we now find out officially that Lana and Whitney have broken up. That
Yes.
that Whitney did not
Yes.
take the truth well. And Clark's like, "Well, what would you do if you told someone the truth and they didn't react well?" And she's like, "Well, that's how Whitney reacted." And then the wedge between Lana and Clark deepens.
Because she's like, "I just told you a personal thing. Freaking tell me a personal thing." And he's like, "I can't do it. I refuse."
Yeah.
And he's like,
"What do you go talk to Nell about how you feel?" That was not the right phrase for him
Well,
to
then
use.
she also says,
"Hiding the truth only keeps people apart." In this scene, you see Clark holding this little spaceship while he's talking to her. It's just like when Jonathan picks up that yo-yo, if you remember. I guess it runs in the family. And while you're having a serious conversation, you got to pick up a toy,
Nostalgic things.
heft it.
Dr. Hamilton is looking for the key, and Lionel has told him, "Well, you find the key and you have your funding, because I'll fund your garbage project because I don't care. I've got so much money, but I need to feel that octagonal key in my blind palm." So so Hamilton is ransacking Pete's shed, assuming that the key fell out in the barn in Pete's transportation of the ship. But Pete catches him and he's like, "The person who owns the ship is more powerful than you." And Hamilton's like, well, you're coming with me, boy.
Yeah,
so he takes him and kidnaps him. And we find out that he's now going to be missing.
And then we go back to the Talon after this. And Lana takes the advice of Clark, even though it was kind of crappy, to talk to Nell about Dean and how she's struggling with the whole situation.
Yes.
And Nell seems to take it pretty well right before announcing the big thing.
They are getting married.
This plot will thicken.
Really?
But enough about stupid Nell. Let's get back to Pete being kidnapped.
I loved this scene, okay? So he's tied up in his old laboratory, okay? Pete is, by Dr. Hamilton. So Dr. Hamilton wipes his sweat on
I
Pete.
know.
I was like, what are you doing?
That's so gross.
His contaminated
he's
sweat.
contaminated.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Here, have
He's
some
like,
of this.
Now you're going to die too.
And it turns out that Hamilton is dying. He
Yeah.
says, at least.
Yeah, it's like the same crap that happened with the Jitters guy. Like,
exactly.
just contaminated. It's gross.
Which now we're finding out that can happen.
And before this resolves, we go back to the mansion and we see Lionel is using a pretty fancy, cool pen that reads for you as you slide it across the page.
Tech is cool now. You can just take a picture of a document and it can read it to you.
That's so awesome.
So that's pretty good old tech.
Yeah. And, Lex overhears and he's like, that's some interesting reading.
Yeah.
But we also learn in this scene that Lex has made a few calls and he learns that Lionel wasn't told take a week off and get some space. It was, you should be here getting all the physical therapy you can. Where is your dad? And we get a tiny bit of humanity out of Lionel where he's like, I don't like this about me. I don't feel good. I essentially have depression and I'm sad.
Yeah, he hates not being the most powerful person in the room.
Yeah.
He's not used to that. He's had it for so long that now he's at the mercy of all these other people. He hates
He's
it.
vulnerable. He hates to be vulnerable.
But I do like Nicole said, that he tells Lex. He gets a little vulnerable with him. It's a huge deal.
Tired of being treated like an object, an invalid. I had to get
And
away
I
from
think
that.
it's a bit of a manipulation to let him stay in the mansion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Because if you're in the mansion running a business, you're not in Metropolis where people see you every day, where the newspapers are going to find you. Lionel Luthor, still blind, in newspapers and stuff. Will the company suffer because of his blindness? If he's off in Smallville, there's no one there to care.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to be reminded of it. After this, we get to the school, and we find out that Mrs. Ross has been calling Clark's house asking about Pete because Pete is missing. And
Yes.
so Clark comes and approaches Chloe to ask her. But there is a fun thing about this. What color is Clark wearing?
Yellow now.
Oh.
I didn't even notice. Why?
It does fit.
One of his colors is yellow.
Yellow
it's just
is
his
part of-
accent color.
True.
It's
Ooh,
very rare
looks
that he
good in
wears
yellow.
it. He does, doesn't he? They don't know where he is, where Pete is.
But they make a connection that, you remember that truck driver Pete saved? He's dead now. And Dr. Hamilton was the last person that talked to him.
Yeah. So let's
So
go back.
let's go to
visit-
Dr. Hamilton's place.
Yeah.
And then
So
he
they do.
disappears, and Chloe's like, Clark. It's one of the biggest reactions to people noticing Clark's disappearance. Like, she actually calls out to him.
None of the other kids cared, though.
No,
Nope.
they're too busy. They got a math test or something today, I guess.
So in the next scene, we see Dr. Hamilton threatening to inject meteor
Concentrate.
juice into Pete.
Meteor juice. I love it.
It's super creepy.
But Pete says, do whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you.
Okay, I loved this because this was Pete's test,
Yes,
right? This
yes.
is what we're scared of. And right at that moment when Pete is going to get injected and die, it proves that he can keep Clark's secret. And I loved it so much.
And Heat Vision comes to the rescue once again.
Why wouldn't you just burn the back of his hand? Why would you pinpoint the syringe full of meteor rock?
So it
Because
doesn't
that
fall
needle
into him.
and that needle explodes at Pete, but miraculously goes into the rope.
Yeah.
Clark, you dummy.
I know it's
agree.
true.
But
Yeah.
it was fun, a little explosion.
And a reason why you need to watch episode 2 of this season. Heat. Why does he have that?
But yeah, Clark comes and saves him.
Sadly, there's this bottle of the juice concentrate, meteor juice,
And
and
it makes Clark weak because and he tells Pete, I'm allergic to the meteor rocks.
Yeah.
but all of it drips and absorbs immediately into Dr. Hamilton's cranium.
After Pete saves Clark's laying on the ground, and then Pete grabs a big fire extinguisher or oxygen tank, whatever it is, hits Hamilton in the face. Hamilton goes flying. And yeah, we see the icky green goo seeping into his forehead skin.
So a fun other comic book movie reference. It was a terrible movie for most people's standards, but The Green Lantern, has anyone seen that? You'll remember the villain gets his own ooze dripped into his head that absorbs. Yeah.
Sadly, this ooze doesn't make him super. It just kills him instantly almost. He just shakes himself to death.
He just goes full Earl and shakes himself to death.
And Clark tells Pete to go and help him.
Yeah. But Pete doesn't really try. But that's okay.
He tries. He goes over there.
He stands there.
And I don't know, if you see somebody moving at rapid pace, you probably don't know what to do. You're going to get hit. You're like, ah. And then he dies so fast, like before Pete could really do anything.
Yeah, but I mean, Pete doesn't even
touch him.
He just stands there like this.
And then Pete takes Clark out of the infected area.
And they get the ship put back in the storm cellar where it belongs. Martha, Jonathan, Clark, and Pete have a chat about the responsibility and how good Clark is.
Which should have happened in the first place,
yes.
right?
If it had happened in the first place, then they welcome Pete to the family officially. You know the secret. Welcome to the family. And all is well. Friendship restored.
I loved it so much.
The best part is the little basketball game they play.
Okay, guess what? What's the little boy's name that finds out Clark's secret?
Ryan.
Okay. Ryan and him play basketball together, and I was like, oh, someone finally knows Clark's secret. And now I'm like, oh, this is for real. Pete knows forever.
Now he can be helpful to Clark and help him cover for him.
He can come up with better lies than Clark does.
Yes.
And now it can be used for fun, like teenage boy for fun stuff.
Yes.
Because Pete's like, you ever look in the girls' locker room?
Yes.
And Clark's like, yeah, maybe once. He goes, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, my boy.
I think having Pete know kind of can lighten Clark up a little.
And it helps lighten the load.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
100%.
I loved it. So I did the songs because Brett's phone was dead at the moment. There was this song, it played at the beginning and at the end, and it was about an ordinary day.
Yeah, just an ordinary day.
Yeah. But guess what? We couldn't find what it was. Did you find it?
I got it.
How?
Yep. Ordinary by Greg Jones.
How'd you find it?
I went and looked it up.
Like on IMDb or something? Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. Why are you being so weird and like secretive?
No, sorry. This is what I was going to tell you about my being lazy. Just I was going to add it in the podcast. I literally went to the Smallville wiki and they have every episode, every song listed for every episode.
So you'll never need to Google again.
I love it. Okay, then we have Southbound Train by Travis Tritt. And that is it. It was not heavy in songs.
It was pretty light.
I did giggle a little bit when that Just an Ordinary Day was playing, because it's anything but ordinary now. Now Clark has the weight off his shoulders. He doesn't have to hide from Pete. He can be open about things with Pete, which is so helpful to him.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
So was this episode super or man?
Oh, for sure super. This was his first friend that finds out that we know he's not going to like get amnesia or something weird.
Yeah.
And I think that's so super and important for the plot.
I think it's super, same reasons. And I like that they have the spaceship and that's no longer an outstanding of who's going to find it. Where's that at? They kind of closed this and didn't leave it open for too long. I really like that.
I'm glad it wasn't like a whole dragged out season of where's the ship. I'm glad it's done. And I'm glad Pete's with him and everything's good. And we're going to get Lionel living in Smallville, which I'm stoked about.
We aren't going to get the dragged out missing octagonal key, though.
Not for too long.
It's too long for me.
Oh. We are going to get dragged out Lana, Chloe, love triangle stuff for a bit too.
Ew.
But this was a good episode.
Yeah, yes. I agree. Super. It's fun. I loved Pete finding out. It's a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks again for joining us on Remembering Smallville.
See you later. Thanks for remembering Smallville with us. Join us next week when
Clark spends some money.
Chloe has a birthmark.
And Pete opens a box.